Welcome to Workers.com, Staffing Pulse, Insights from the Frontline. I'm Jennifer, Personnel Manager. I spend a lot of time working with employers who are trying to balance production goals, hiring timelines, compliance, and employee retention. One topic comes up repeatedly, regardless of industry. Companies know seasonal demand is coming, but many still find themselves scrambling to hire after the workload has already arrived.
I'm Sam, Staffing Manager. My role focuses on helping employers build staffing strategies that support operations before labor shortages begin affecting production. Some companies assume seasonal hiring starts when business gets busy. In practice, the planning process starts months earlier. That's where today's discussion is headed.
I'm Shelby, Recruiting Coordinator. Every day I work with candidates looking for opportunities in manufacturing, warehousing, logistics, food production, and distribution. One thing I've learned is that recruiting gets much easier when employers have a clear workforce plan instead of an urgent hiring request.
And I'm Rod, Recruiting Manager. I've worked with companies during holiday peaks, agricultural production cycles, manufacturing launches, inventory builds, and emergency staffing situations. The organizations that consistently succeed usually aren't hiring faster than everyone else. They're simply making decisions earlier.
Today's discussion is about workforce planning for seasonal demand. Every year, there are predictable business cycles: holiday shopping, back-to-school demand, agricultural harvests, summer construction, end-of-quarter manufacturing, annual inventory projects, promotional campaigns, large customer contracts. None of these should surprise employers, yet many organizations still find themselves asking the same question: why can't we find enough workers?
Sometimes the answer isn't a shortage of workers. Sometimes it's timing. If 20 employers in the same region all decide they need forklift operators on the same Monday, they're competing for the same talent pool. The companies that started recruiting 2 months earlier usually have their teams in place before everyone else begins posting job openings.
Candidates notice that too. When employers recruit early, interviews feel organized. Schedules are flexible. Training dates are planned. Communication is consistent. When recruiting starts late, candidates often experience rushed interviews, delayed responses, changing schedules, or uncertainty about when work actually begins. Those details influence whether someone accepts the position.
There's another factor many employers overlook. Candidates are planning their own careers. They're not sitting at home waiting for one particular employer to become busy. Strong workers continue applying, interviewing, and accepting jobs throughout the year. If an employer waits until demand peaks, many of the strongest candidates have already committed somewhere else.
Let's define what workforce planning really means, because people often associate it only with budgeting. It's much broader than that. Effective workforce planning means understanding future business activity and making hiring decisions before operational pressure appears. That includes forecasting labor needs, reviewing historical demand, evaluating turnover, preparing training, coordinating supervisors, planning onboarding, working with staffing partners, monitoring labor markets, adjusting schedules, building candidate pipelines. All of those activities happen before production ramps up.
Think about a warehouse preparing for holiday fulfillment. If leadership waits until trailers are already filling the yard before hiring, every decision becomes reactive. Recruiters are rushed. Managers conduct interviews between operational meetings. Training gets compressed. Experienced employees work overtime. Quality starts slipping. Attendance becomes more difficult to manage. Those aren't hiring problems. They're planning problems.
The same applies to retail distribution. Many distribution centers experience fairly consistent annual demand. The exact order volume changes. Customer expectations change. Shipping deadlines change. But leadership usually knows which months will require additional labor. That information is valuable if it's used early.
Food production provides another example. A facility producing frozen foods may increase production before major holidays. Another manufacturer may prepare months ahead for school nutrition programs. Some food processors support agricultural harvest seasons. Others produce beverages with strong summer demand. These cycles often repeat year after year.
Manufacturing follows similar patterns. One manufacturer prepares for automotive production. Another supports construction materials during warmer months. A different company builds inventory ahead of planned customer launches. Although each production schedule looks different, they all share one characteristic. Future demand is visible well before hiring begins.
One question we hear from employers is this: how far ahead should we start planning? There's no universal answer because every organization operates differently. A facility requiring highly specialized maintenance technicians needs more lead time than one hiring general warehouse associates. Positions requiring certifications, security clearances, equipment experience, or technical skills naturally require longer recruiting timelines.
That's where understanding your hiring funnel becomes important. Let's say you need 50 warehouse associates. You probably won't interview 50 people. You'll interview significantly more. Some candidates decline offers. Some accept positions elsewhere. Some fail background screenings. Some decide the commute isn't practical. Others simply change their minds. Your recruiting process needs enough time for those normal adjustments.
Many employers underestimate this. They say they need 30 employees. What they really need is enough qualified applicants to produce 30 successful starts. Those are two different numbers.
Let's walk through an example. Imagine a regional distribution center expecting a 40% increase in shipments during October and November. Leadership knows this happens every year. Customer contracts have already been finalized. Inventory orders are scheduled. Transportation partners are preparing equipment. Sales forecasts are complete, yet hiring discussions don't begin until late September.
At that point, several challenges appear immediately. Recruiters have limited time. Advertising costs increase because every competitor is posting jobs simultaneously. Hiring managers have fewer interview slots available. Training teams become overloaded. Orientation classes grow larger. New employees receive less individual attention. All of this affects productivity.
Now compare that to another company. In June, they review last year's staffing data. In July, they meet with department managers. In August, recruiting campaigns begin. September focuses on interviews. October becomes onboarding. By the time demand reaches full capacity, employees already understand expectations.
Notice something interesting. Neither company changed the seasonal demand. Both experienced the same customer activity. The difference was preparation.
Preparation also improves employee experience. New hires appreciate clear communication. They want consistent schedules. They want organized onboarding, and they want supervisors who have time to answer questions. Planning ahead creates those opportunities.
There's another operational benefit. Supervisors spend more time coaching employees and less time solving staffing emergencies. Instead of asking, "Who didn't show up today?" they're discussing productivity, safety, quality, cross-training, continuous improvement. That's where managers create the greatest value.
From a recruiting perspective, earlier planning also expands your candidate pool. Candidates who aren't available today might be available in 6 weeks. Students finishing programs, workers relocating, temporary employees completing another assignment, military veterans transitioning into civilian careers, individuals relocating for family reasons. Early recruiting gives those conversations time to develop.
Sometimes employers think forecasting eliminates flexibility. It doesn't. Forecasting creates options. If business increases more than expected, you're already recruiting. If business grows more slowly, you've built relationships with candidates instead of making immediate hiring commitments.
Let's talk about data, because good forecasting begins with information. Many employers already possess valuable workforce data. They simply aren't reviewing it consistently. Look at last year's hiring timeline. turnover reports, attendance patterns, overtime hours, production schedules, customer orders, vacation requests, training completion rates. Those numbers often reveal seasonal trends long before managers recognize them operationally.
Recruiters benefit from reviewing those reports, too. If turnover typically increases after a certain season, recruiting efforts should begin before those resignations occur. If attendance changes during school breaks or holidays, staffing plans should reflect those realities. Data supports better conversations.
And don't overlook employee feedback. Frontline workers often identify operational challenges before management reports reflect them. They notice when departments become understaffed. They recognize recurring bottlenecks. They understand which shifts consistently struggle with coverage. Those observations contribute valuable forecasting information.
One conversation I enjoy having with employers starts with a simple question. What happened last year? Not because we're trying to repeat history. Because we're trying to learn from it. Where did hiring slow down? When did overtime begin increasing? Which departments struggled most? Which recruiting sources produced the strongest employees? Which onboarding classes performed best? Each answer improves next year's planning.
The goal isn't predicting the future with perfect accuracy. Business conditions change. Customer demand changes. Economic conditions change. The objective is improving decision-making using the best information available today.
That's an important distinction. Forecasting isn't about eliminating uncertainty. It's about reducing unnecessary surprises. And when companies reduce surprises, operations become more stable. Employees experience better onboarding. Supervisors have more time to lead. And customers receive more consistent service.
Throughout today's discussion, we're going to look at practical examples from warehousing, retail distribution, food production, and manufacturing. We'll discuss how organizations build hiring calendars, strengthen recruiting pipelines, coordinate with staffing partners, prepare supervisors, and measure success before seasonal demand reaches full capacity.
We'll also share examples of what happens when planning starts too late, because those lessons often become the most valuable. Many staffing challenges don't begin on the production floor. They begin months earlier during planning meetings that never happened.
That's a great place to pause. We've established why workforce planning starts long before seasonal demand arrives and why forecasting is one of the strongest operational advantages an employer can build. In our next discussion, we'll begin examining how organizations forecast labor demand using business data, customer trends, production schedules, and historical hiring patterns before a single job posting goes live.
One of the questions employers ask us most often is, how do we know how many people we'll actually need? It's a fair question because forecasting isn't about guessing. It's about combining operational data with experience and making informed decisions before demand reaches your facility.
That's where workforce planning becomes a business function instead of simply a recruiting activity. Hiring doesn't begin with job postings. It begins with understanding where your business is heading over the next several months.
From the recruiting side, there's a huge difference between hearing, "We might need some people later this fall," and receiving a detailed hiring forecast that identifies departments, positions, start dates, shift schedules, and estimated headcount. The more information we receive up front, the more targeted our recruiting efforts become.
And those conversations often uncover opportunities the employer hadn't considered. Sometimes they realize one department's slowdown overlaps another department's peak. Cross-training existing employees might reduce external hiring. Other times, they recognize that staggered start dates make onboarding much more manageable.
Let's start with historical data because it's usually the strongest foundation. Many companies already have years of operational information sitting in spreadsheets, ERP systems, payroll reports, warehouse management software, or production dashboards. The question isn't whether the data exists. The question is whether anyone is using it for workforce planning.
Think about a manufacturing facility producing HVAC equipment. Demand increases every spring as construction activity accelerates. Production records show output increasing in February. Shipping records increase in March. Customer orders begin climbing in January, yet hiring historically starts in late February. Every year, supervisors report overtime during March because production expands before staffing catches up. That's a pattern. Patterns are valuable because they help employers improve next year's decisions.
Recruiters appreciate those patterns too. If we know hiring starts in January instead of March, we're recruiting while candidate availability is stronger. Candidates have more scheduling flexibility. Interview calendars are easier to manage. Employers have time to compare applicants instead of making rushed hiring decisions.
Here's another example. A retail distribution center experiences its largest demand between October and December. Historically, the company hires 200 seasonal employees, but when leadership reviews attendance data, they notice something interesting. Every year, approximately 15% of new hires leave during their first month. If they need 200 employees working in October, they shouldn't plan to hire only 200. Forecasting includes expected attrition.
That's an important distinction. Forecasting isn't simply calculating workload. It's accounting for everything that influences workforce capacity. Turnover, vacation schedules, leaves of absence, retirements, training periods, equipment installations, production line maintenance, shift expansions, business growth. All of those variables affect staffing requirements.
Let's walk through how an operations meeting might sound 6 months before peak season. The plant manager says production will increase by 20%. The warehouse manager expects inbound inventory to grow by 15%. Transportation schedules indicate additional outbound shipments. Customer service anticipates longer support hours. Maintenance plans preventative shutdowns before production increases. Finance approves overtime limits. HR reviews expected retirements. Recruiting begins building hiring timelines. That's workforce planning. Nobody is waiting for an emergency.
Notice how recruiting isn't leading the conversation. Recruiting supports the conversation. Operations determines demand. Finance establishes budgets. Leadership defines business objectives. Recruiting develops staffing strategies that support those plans.
And staffing partners become much more effective when those conversations happen early. Instead of receiving a request for 50 employees by next Monday, we're discussing labor availability months in advance. That gives everyone more flexibility.
Let's shift over to warehousing because forecasting there often follows very recognizable patterns. A regional fulfillment center receives customer forecasts from major retailers. Purchase orders begin increasing. Inbound freight schedules expand. Trailer reservations increase. Warehouse management systems predict higher inventory movement. None of those events happen overnight. Each one provides an early signal that labor demand is about to increase.
Warehouse operations also benefit from forecasting by department, receiving, put away, picking, packing, shipping, returns, inventory control. Each area experiences different workloads depending on customer demand. Hiring plans become much more accurate when labor is forecast by function instead of treating the warehouse as one large department.
That's something candidates notice too. A warehouse associate applying for order picking appreciates knowing exactly where they'll work. So does a forklift operator and an inventory specialist. Clear expectations improve acceptance rates because applicants understand the role before orientation.
Food production offers another interesting example. Let's imagine a facility producing frozen vegetables. Harvest schedules are known months in advance. Agricultural suppliers communicate expected delivery volumes. Processing capacity is planned. Packaging materials are ordered. Transportation contracts are confirmed. The labor plan should evolve alongside every one of those business activities.
Instead, some organizations delay hiring because they hope demand will stay lower. The problem is that if demand increases, recruiting starts after every other processor in the region begins hiring. Now everyone is competing for the same workforce.
Manufacturing faces similar decisions during product launches. Suppose a customer awards a large production contract beginning in November. Engineering starts preparing. Equipment installation begins. Quality develops inspection procedures. Maintenance schedules machine readiness. Operations creates production schedules. Recruiting should already be identifying operators before equipment starts running.
Waiting until production equipment is operational usually means employees receive compressed training. Instead of learning gradually, they're expected to become productive immediately. That's stressful for supervisors and new employees.
Let's talk about forecasting by skills instead of headcount. Many employers focus only on the total number of employees. They say they need 100 workers. The better question is this: what skills do those 100 employees need?
A warehouse may require 20 forklift operators, 30 order selectors, 20 packing associates, 15 shipping clerks, 10 inventory specialists, 5 leads. That's a much different recruiting strategy than simply hiring 100 warehouse employees.
The same applies in manufacturing. CNC machinists, maintenance technicians, assemblers, quality inspectors, material handlers, production leads. Each role requires different sourcing strategies and different recruiting timelines.
Some skills are readily available, others take weeks or months to recruit. Forecasting allows employers to prioritize the positions that require the longest lead time.
Another mistake we sometimes see involves assuming productivity starts on day one. It rarely does. Even experienced employees need time. Learning facility layouts, understanding safety procedures, meeting coworkers, learning production standards, becoming comfortable with equipment.
Let's use a practical example. A food production facility hires 30 packaging associates. Orientation takes 1 day. Safety training requires another day. Job-specific instruction continues throughout the week. By the second week, employees become more comfortable. By the third week, productivity improves. By the fourth week, many employees perform at expected levels. If production peaks during week 1, staffing started too late.
Planning backwards from productivity instead of start dates is one of the smartest forecasting techniques available. Ask yourself when employees need to perform independently, then determine how much training they require. Then identify hiring dates that support those milestones.
Recruiters appreciate that approach because expectations become realistic. Instead of asking candidates to begin tomorrow, employers provide clear onboarding schedules and organized training plans. Candidates respond positively to that level of preparation.
Let's discuss communication because forecasting isn't something leadership should keep inside executive meetings. Department supervisors need visibility. Recruiters need visibility. Staffing partners need visibility. Training teams need visibility. The earlier everyone understands the hiring plan, the smoother implementation becomes.
I've seen organizations create simple hiring calendars that everyone references. Hiring begins, interviews start, offers are extended. Orientation dates are scheduled. Departments prepare workstations. Equipment assignments are completed. Mentors are identified. Nothing about the process feels rushed.
Contrast that with reactive hiring. Recruiters are searching for applicants. Supervisors don't know interview times. IT hasn't created employee accounts. Uniforms haven't arrived. Badge access isn't ready. Training materials are incomplete. everyone works harder because planning happened later than it should have.
One thing candidates consistently mention is organization. People form impressions during the hiring process. When interviews start on time, communication is consistent, and orientation is well planned, applicants begin trusting the employer before their first shift.
That trust often improves retention. Employees who experience organized onboarding tend to feel the company values preparation. That first impression carries into productivity, engagement, and long-term employment.
Forecasting also allows companies to respond when business changes. Suppose customer demand slows unexpectedly. Hiring plans don't necessarily stop, they adjust. Maybe onboarding groups become smaller, maybe start dates shift slightly, maybe temporary assignments are extended instead of adding new positions. Forecasting provides flexibility because decisions happen before operations become overwhelmed.
Let's touch on technology. Forecasting tools have improved significantly over the past decade. Warehouse management systems predict labor demand. Manufacturing software forecasts production schedules. ERP systems monitor customer orders. HR platforms identify turnover trends. Applicant tracking systems measure recruiting pipelines. The technology is valuable, but technology still depends on leadership using the information consistently.
Even a spreadsheet reviewed every month is more valuable than sophisticated software nobody consults. Good planning starts with asking good questions.
Questions like, what happened last season? Which department struggled most? How long did hiring actually take? Where did applicants come from? Which recruiting sources produced the strongest long-term employees? Which supervisors onboarded employees most successfully?
Those discussions create continuous improvement. Each hiring season becomes an opportunity to refine the process instead of repeating the same challenges.
And one final thought before we wrap this part of the discussion. Forecasting isn't about predicting every detail perfectly. It's about making better decisions earlier. Organizations that consistently outperform competitors usually aren't reacting faster. They're preparing sooner.
That's the foundation of successful workforce planning. Once employers understand future labor demand, the next challenge is building a recruiting pipeline that supports those forecasts. In our next discussion, we'll explore how warehousing, retail distribution, manufacturing, and food production employers attract, engage, and secure qualified workers months before seasonal demand reaches its highest point.
One of my favorite parts of workforce planning is watching what happens when recruiting starts before hiring becomes urgent. Conversations are different. Candidates have time to ask thoughtful questions. Employers have time to evaluate experience. Nobody feels like they're racing against the clock.
That's a good way to describe it. Recruiting works best when it's proactive instead of reactive. A strong talent pipeline isn't built in a week. It's built through consistent communication, relationship building, and understanding what employers are going to need before those openings officially exist.
And that often surprises employers. They assume recruiting begins the day a position is approved. In reality, the strongest recruiting teams are always building relationships with future candidates. Some of those people won't be ready today, but they might be available in 30, 60, or 90 days.
Which is why workforce planning and recruiting have to operate together. If operations forecasts demand 6 months ahead, recruiting gains 6 months to prepare. That's a significant competitive advantage.
Let's define what we mean by a talent pipeline. A pipeline isn't simply a list of resumes. It's a group of qualified people who have already shown interest, communicated with recruiters, understand the opportunity, and are at different stages of the hiring process. Some are interviewing, completing certifications, finishing another assignment, waiting for the right start date.
Think of it like inventory planning. Manufacturers don't wait until raw materials run out before placing orders. Distribution centers don't wait until shelves are empty before restocking. Workforce planning follows the same principle. Maintain a healthy pipeline before demand reaches its highest point.
Let's use a warehouse example. A regional fulfillment center expects holiday shipping volume to increase by 35% beginning in October. Instead of posting every opening in September, recruiting begins networking with forklift operators, pickers, packers, shipping clerks, and inventory specialists during the summer. Applicants enter the recruiting process gradually. Interviews are scheduled over several weeks. Reference checks are completed. Orientation dates are planned. The hiring process becomes much more manageable.
That gradual approach also improves hiring quality. When recruiters have time, they're comparing applicants instead of filling vacancies as quickly as possible. Hiring managers have meaningful conversations. Skills assessments receive proper attention. Candidates have opportunities to tour the facility. Everyone makes better decisions.
One thing we've learned over the years is that communication matters just as much as recruiting. Candidates appreciate knowing what's happening. If hiring begins in 6 weeks, tell them. If interviews start next month, explain the timeline. If production ramps up after Labor Day, share that information. People are much more comfortable making career decisions when expectations are clear.
Communication also keeps candidates engaged. Suppose someone interviews today, but their preferred shift won't open for another month. Without communication, they may accept another position. With regular updates, they often remain interested because they understand the timeline.
Let's move into manufacturing because talent pipelines there often require even more preparation. Many manufacturing facilities rely on employees with specialized experience. Machine operators, maintenance mechanics, industrial electricians, quality technicians, CNC machinists, production leads. Those positions usually require longer recruiting cycles than entry-level roles.
That's why forecasting by skill becomes so important. If leadership expects 3 new production lines next quarter, recruiting shouldn't wait for installation to finish. The search for skilled employees should already be underway.
Recruiters also spend time identifying transferable skills. Someone operating automated equipment in food production might transition successfully into another manufacturing environment. A warehouse forklift operator may have inventory control experience that's valuable elsewhere. Looking beyond job titles often expands the available talent pool.
We've seen employers benefit by focusing on aptitude alongside experience. Technical skills matter. Safety awareness matters. Reliability matters. Communication matters. A candidate who demonstrates those qualities often develops job-specific skills quickly through effective onboarding and training.
That's especially true when employers invest in structured onboarding. Instead of expecting employees to figure everything out during the first few shifts, organizations provide a clear learning path. Safety orientation, equipment instruction, department introductions, performance expectations, regular check-ins. Those steps increase confidence and improve retention.
Food production offers another example. Imagine a company preparing for increased production ahead of major holidays. Hiring starts months in advance. Some employees begin immediately. Others join closer to peak season. Experienced workers help train incoming employees. Knowledge transfers gradually instead of overwhelming supervisors during one large hiring event.
Staggered hiring is one of the most effective planning tools available. Instead of onboarding 50 people in 1 week, maybe it's 15 this week, another 15 next week, 20 the following week. Training becomes more personal. Questions receive better answers. Supervisors have more time with each employee.
It also reduces pressure on experienced team members. Large onboarding groups often require seasoned employees to pause their own work repeatedly to answer questions. Smaller groups make those conversations much more manageable.
Let's talk about cross-training because workforce planning isn't always about adding people. Sometimes it's about increasing flexibility within the existing workforce. Suppose a manufacturing facility cross-trains material handlers to support shipping during peak periods. Or warehouse associates learn both receiving and picking. Or food production employees become qualified on multiple packaging lines. Those employees provide valuable flexibility when workloads shift.
Cross-training also creates career development opportunities. Employees appreciate learning additional skills. They become more versatile. Supervisors gain scheduling flexibility. Operations become more resilient. Everyone benefits.
Candidates often ask about advancement opportunities during interviews. Cross-training gives recruiters a meaningful answer. Instead of saying, "You'll work in one department," we explain how employees have opportunities to expand their skills over time.
That message resonates with experienced workers. People want stability. They want opportunities to learn and employers who invest in their development.
Another valuable strategy involves maintaining relationships with former employees. Not every departure is negative. Seasonal workers complete assignments. Employees relocate. Students return to school. Military reservists fulfill obligations. Sometimes experienced workers simply pursue another opportunity that later changes.
Those individuals already understand your operation. They know your culture. They've completed onboarding. If they left in good standing, reconnecting before peak season often produces strong results.
We've had conversations where someone says, "I enjoyed working there. Let me know if another opportunity opens." That's someone worth keeping in your recruiting pipeline.
The same applies to temporary employees who performed well during previous assignments. If supervisors documented strong performance, why begin every hiring season from scratch? Maintain those relationships.
Let's shift to retail distribution because timing there is especially important. Customer buying habits create predictable patterns. Back to school, holiday shopping, inventory replenishment, seasonal promotions. Employers often know these dates well in advance. Recruiting timelines should reflect that knowledge.
Distribution centers also benefit from forecasting shift demand. Maybe first shift requires additional receiving staff. Second shift expands order picking. Weekend operations support shipping. Understanding labor needs by shift produces much more accurate recruiting.
Candidates frequently ask about schedules before discussing anything else. If employers already know expected shifts, overtime expectations, and projected assignment lengths, recruiters provide much more useful information.
Clear expectations reduce surprises, and fewer surprises generally improve retention.
Let's discuss onboarding capacity. Sometimes employers focus entirely on recruiting enough people, but overlook whether the organization has enough resources to onboard them successfully. Who conducts orientation, provides safety training, issues badges, distributes uniforms, trains equipment operators? Those resources need planning too.
I've seen companies hire 100 employees successfully, but struggle because orientation space only accommodates 25 people comfortably. Recruiting succeeded. Planning didn't extend far enough into implementation.
The same thing happens with equipment. If new hires need scanners, radios, tablets, forklifts, or specialized tools, those items should already be available. Nothing slows momentum like asking new employees to wait several days before they have the equipment required to perform their jobs.
Mentorship deserves attention as well. Assigning experienced employees to support new hires often accelerates learning. Not through formal classroom instruction alone, through daily conversations, questions, observations, practical advice.
That approach strengthens workplace culture. New employees know who to ask. Experienced employees take pride in sharing knowledge. Supervisors spend less time responding to routine questions because mentors handle many of those interactions naturally.
Let's touch briefly on staffing partnerships. A staffing partner becomes much more valuable when conversations begin early. Instead of receiving emergency requests, recruiters understand future hiring plans, labor requirements, desired skills, and onboarding schedules. Preparation improves outcomes for everyone involved.
It also improves candidate quality because sourcing strategies become more targeted. Instead of advertising broadly under tight deadlines, recruiters identify candidates who genuinely match the employer's operational needs.
One final observation before we wrap up this part of the discussion. Organizations sometimes view recruiting as the finish line. It isn't. Recruiting is the beginning of the employee experience. Everything that follows determines whether workforce planning succeeds over the entire season.
That's a great point, because filling positions is only one measure of success. The larger goal is maintaining productivity throughout the season while supporting employees, supervisors, and customers. In our next discussion, we'll examine how employers balance temporary staffing, temp-to-hire strategies, scheduling, overtime management, and workforce flexibility while demand continues to change throughout the busiest months of the year.
By the time seasonal demand arrives, workforce planning shifts into execution. The hiring plan is in motion. Employees are starting. Supervisors are leading larger teams. Now the focus becomes maintaining productivity without sacrificing safety, quality, or employee experience.
That's where preparation starts paying dividends. If forecasting was done well and recruiting began early, managers spend less time putting out fires and more time leading their teams. Instead of asking how they'll cover today's vacancies, they're focused on production goals, coaching employees, and supporting customers.
One thing we often tell employers is that hiring enough people is only one part of the equation. The other part is making sure those employees are scheduled effectively and supported throughout the season.
From the recruiting side, this is where communication becomes even more important. Candidates accepted the position because they understood the opportunity. Once they're on the job, they expect the experience to match what was discussed during the interview.
Let's start with temporary staffing because seasonal demand isn't always permanent. Many companies experience demand increases lasting several weeks. Others remain busy for several months. Some see multiple peaks throughout the year. Temporary staffing gives employers flexibility while maintaining operational capacity.
A good example is a retail distribution center preparing for holiday shipping. Management knows order volume will increase dramatically for approximately 10 weeks. Hiring permanent employees for every seasonal position might leave the organization overstaffed once demand returns to normal. Temporary staffing helps bridge that gap while maintaining service levels.
Temporary staffing also allows organizations to scale gradually. Rather than bringing in 100 employees at once, they might begin with 30, then another 20, then another 25. The final group joins once customer demand confirms the projected workload. That staged approach reduces risk while maintaining flexibility.
Candidates appreciate clear expectations about assignment length. If a position is expected to last 3 months, explain that. If strong performance creates opportunities for longer assignments, explain that too. Transparency builds trust.
Which brings us to temp to hire. This strategy works particularly well when employers expect long-term growth but want to evaluate employees within real working conditions before extending permanent offers.
Temp to hire benefits both sides. Employers observe attendance, safety habits, teamwork, adaptability, productivity. Employees gain a realistic understanding of the company, supervisors, schedules, and work environment before making a long-term commitment.
That reduces mismatched expectations. Everyone has more information before making permanent employment decisions.
We've had candidates tell us they appreciated seeing the workplace first. Instead of relying entirely on an interview, they experienced the culture, equipment, pace of work, and leadership style firsthand.
Now let's shift into scheduling, because workforce planning doesn't stop once employees are hired. Scheduling has a direct impact on productivity, morale, and retention.
Think about a manufacturing operation adding a weekend shift. Hiring enough employees is important. Making sure supervisors, maintenance personnel, quality inspectors, and material handlers are also available is equally important. Every function has to expand together.
We've seen situations where production hired additional operators but overlooked support departments. Machines were ready, operators were ready, but maintenance coverage wasn't available. Quality inspections slowed production. Material deliveries fell behind schedule. The workforce plan focused on one department instead of the entire operation.
The same thing happens in warehousing. Suppose receiving expands, but shipping doesn't. Inbound trailers unload efficiently. Inventory fills storage locations. But outbound shipments begin backing up because shipping wasn't staffed appropriately.
That's why workforce planning should always consider the complete workflow. Every department affects another.
Let's talk about overtime, because this is where many organizations begin feeling operational pressure. Overtime is a useful tool. It helps employers respond to temporary fluctuations, cover unexpected absences, complete urgent customer orders, handle equipment downtime. But overtime isn't designed to solve long-term staffing shortages.
When overtime becomes the primary staffing strategy for weeks or months, several risks begin appearing. Employee fatigue increases. Absenteeism often rises. Supervisors spend more time adjusting schedules. Training receives less attention. Safety awareness declines.
Employees also notice the difference. Most people understand occasional overtime. Many appreciate the additional earnings. The concern develops when overtime becomes constant and employees have little opportunity to recover.
Fatigue affects decision-making. People become less attentive. Communication changes. Small mistakes become more common. Those aren't individual failures. They're predictable operational outcomes when workloads exceed sustainable levels.
Food production provides a practical example. Imagine employees working 12-hour shifts for several consecutive weeks during peak production. The first week might go smoothly. By week 4, energy levels look very different. Supervisors spend more time monitoring fatigue. Attendance begins changing. Productivity varies more throughout each shift. Planning additional staffing earlier often reduces that pressure.
Scheduling flexibility also plays a major role. Some organizations maintain fixed schedules. Others use staggered start times. Some create weekend teams. Others rotate shifts. There's no universal solution. The right approach depends on production requirements, customer expectations, and employee availability.
Recruiters help by understanding those scheduling options before interviewing candidates. Someone seeking first shift isn't necessarily the right fit for overnight production. Someone wanting weekend work might become the ideal solution for another department. Clear scheduling conversations improve placement success.
Another valuable planning strategy involves creating reserve capacity.
That's something employers don't always think about. Reserve capacity doesn't necessarily mean hiring far more employees than needed. It means building flexibility into the workforce. Cross-trained employees, on-call availability where appropriate, reliable temporary staffing partnerships, former seasonal employees willing to return, multiple recruiting sources. Those options reduce operational stress when unexpected situations occur.
Let's imagine a warehouse experiences a sudden customer promotion that doubles outbound orders for 1 week. An employer with reserve capacity responds much differently than one already operating at maximum staffing. The prepared organization activates additional resources. The unprepared organization starts making emergency phone calls.
Emergency recruiting rarely produces the same results as planned recruiting. Candidates and managers feel rushed. Training gets compressed. Everyone works harder.
Let's move into supervisor communication because seasonal growth changes leadership responsibilities. A supervisor managing 15 employees one month may suddenly oversee 30 or 40. That's a different leadership challenge.
New supervisors sometimes assume larger teams simply require more scheduling. In reality, communication becomes even more important. Regular check-ins, clear expectations, recognition, coaching, problem solving. Employees who feel supported tend to remain engaged throughout demanding seasons.
We've also seen employers hold brief start-of-shift meetings during peak periods. 5 or 10 minutes, safety reminders, production goals, customer priorities, equipment updates, questions from employees. Those meetings keep everyone aligned before work begins.
New employees especially appreciate those conversations. They're still learning procedures. A short daily meeting reinforces expectations without overwhelming them.
Recognition deserves attention too. Peak seasons often involve long hours and demanding workloads. Acknowledging employee contributions doesn't require elaborate programs. Simple appreciation from supervisors matters.
People remember how they were treated during busy periods. If leadership remains visible, communicates openly, and supports employees through operational challenges, trust grows. If communication disappears as workload increases, engagement often declines.
Let's talk about measuring workforce performance during the season. Many employers wait until peak demand ends before reviewing results. There's value in evaluating performance throughout the season instead.
Ask questions every week. How many positions remain open? How many employees completed onboarding? What's attendance looking like? Is overtime increasing? Are productivity targets being met? Are supervisors identifying skill gaps? Those conversations allow adjustments before small issues become larger operational problems.
Recruiting benefits from those updates too. Suppose attendance is stronger than expected. Hiring plans may slow slightly. If turnover increases unexpectedly, recruiting efforts expand before staffing levels become critical.
Continuous communication between operations and recruiting keeps workforce planning dynamic. It's not a document created once and forgotten. It's an ongoing conversation throughout the season.
Let's spend a few minutes on manufacturing because production schedules often change with little notice. A customer increases an order. Another delays delivery. Equipment maintenance finishes ahead of schedule. Supply chain conditions improve. Each change influences staffing requirements.
Organizations with strong workforce planning adapt much more comfortably because recruiting pipelines already exist. Managers know where additional talent will come from. They aren't beginning every conversation from scratch.
Food production experiences similar adjustments. Weather affects harvest timing. Transportation schedules change. Retail demand shifts. The employers who communicate those changes quickly give recruiters time to respond appropriately.
Warehousing follows the same pattern. Unexpected inbound freight, promotional events, inventory corrections, customer returns, each one affects labor requirements. The organizations reviewing workforce data daily make better staffing decisions than those reacting after service levels begin slipping.
Another topic worth discussing is employee retention during the busiest weeks. Seasonal employees who feel connected to the organization often remain through the assignment and frequently return during future peak seasons. That reduces recruiting costs year after year.
Retention begins with realistic expectations, clear job descriptions, organized onboarding, consistent schedules whenever possible, supportive supervisors, reliable communication. Employees don't expect perfect conditions during busy seasons. They do expect honesty.
We've had many returning seasonal employees tell us they came back because they knew what to expect. They trusted the supervisors. They enjoyed the team. The work was organized. That consistency mattered.
And those returning employees become valuable mentors for new hires. Each successful season strengthens the next one because experienced workers already understand the operation.
That's one of the biggest advantages of long-term workforce planning. Every season becomes an opportunity to improve the next one instead of starting over. The organization builds institutional knowledge. Recruiters build stronger talent pipelines. Supervisors gain experience leading seasonal teams. Employees return with confidence because they've already been successful.
By this point, we've talked about forecasting demand, building recruiting pipelines, onboarding effectively, managing staffing strategies, scheduling operations, and supporting employees throughout the busiest months of the year.
Our final discussion brings all of those pieces together. We'll look at the most common workforce planning mistakes organizations make, practical steps employers can begin implementing immediately, and the key lessons companies in warehousing, retail distribution, food production, and manufacturing take forward into every future hiring season. Throughout today's discussion, we've talked about forecasting demand, preparing recruiting pipelines, supporting supervisors, and managing seasonal growth. What ties all of those topics together is one simple idea. Workforce planning is an ongoing business strategy, not a once-a-year project.
That's one of the biggest mindset shifts employers make. Organizations that consistently manage seasonal demand successfully don't view hiring as something separate from operations. They treat staffing as one of the core components of production planning.
From recruiting, you can usually tell which companies have that approach. Their conversations begin with planning. When should we start? What skills will we need? How many people should complete orientation each week? How should we stagger our hiring? Those questions lead to organized recruiting.
Compare that with conversations that begin like this. We're already behind. We need 40 employees by Monday. Production is increasing tomorrow. Can someone start this afternoon? Recruiting still works hard to help, but the options become much more limited.
Let's look at some of the most common workforce planning mistakes we see across warehousing, retail distribution, food production, and manufacturing. The first mistake is assuming last-minute hiring saves money.
It usually costs more. Advertising expenses increase. Overtime increases. Supervisors spend more time interviewing. Training becomes compressed. Turnover often increases because onboarding isn't as thorough. Operational disruptions become more expensive than early planning ever would have been.
There's another cost people don't always notice: recruiter time. When hiring is rushed, recruiters spend more hours sourcing candidates, scheduling interviews, rescheduling interviews, following up on changing start dates, and managing urgent requests. Planning ahead makes those hours much more productive.
The second mistake is treating every seasonal hiring cycle like it's brand new.
Every year produces valuable information. Which recruiting sources performed best? Which departments reached productivity fastest? Which supervisors retained employees most successfully? Which orientation schedules worked well? Which shift structures created challenges? That information shouldn't disappear after the season ends.
We've worked with employers who conduct a simple post-season review within 2 weeks after peak demand slows. operations, HR and recruiting, department supervisors, sometimes finance. Everyone shares observations while the experience is still fresh. Those meetings often produce improvements for the following year.
Recruiters contribute useful information during those discussions. Which job advertisements generated quality applicants? Which interview questions produced better hiring decisions? Which communication methods kept candidates engaged? Which positions took the longest to fill? Those insights improve future recruiting plans.
The third mistake involves focusing only on hiring numbers.
Headcount matters, but workforce planning should also measure quality. Attendance, retention, safety performance, productivity, training completion, customer service, quality control. Those measurements provide a much more complete picture of workforce success.
Let's use manufacturing as an example. Suppose two facilities both hire 100 employees. One reaches full production in 3 weeks. The other takes 7 weeks because turnover increases and retraining continues throughout the season. Both filled 100 positions. Only one achieved its workforce planning objective.
That example reminds us why recruiting and retention belong in the same conversation. Finding employees matters. Keeping productive employees matters even more.
The fourth mistake is overlooking leadership development.
Seasonal growth affects supervisors just as much as frontline employees. Team sizes increase, questions increase, scheduling becomes more complicated, coaching responsibilities expand. Without preparation, supervisors become overwhelmed.
Many employers invest heavily in employee onboarding. Fewer spend time preparing supervisors for seasonal leadership. Simple training topics make a difference. Communication, conflict resolution, coaching new employees, recognizing performance, managing larger teams. Those skills improve the employee experience throughout the season.
Employees often decide whether to remain with a company based on daily interactions with supervisors. The recruiting process brings people into the organization. Leadership influences whether they stay.
The fifth mistake is assuming workforce planning ends after everyone starts work.
Peak season is dynamic. Customer demand changes, attendance changes, production priorities change. Transportation schedules change. Staffing plans should change too.
That's why weekly workforce reviews are so valuable. They don't need to last hours. Sometimes 30 minutes is enough. Review staffing levels, open positions, attendance, safety observations, production output, upcoming customer demand, recruiting progress, then make adjustments while there's still time.
Recruiters appreciate those meetings because priorities remain current. Instead of discovering changes after operations begin struggling, recruiting responds before shortages develop.
Let's shift toward practical recommendations employers can begin using immediately.
The first recommendation is creating a seasonal workforce calendar. Identify your busiest months, count backward, determine when recruiting should begin, when interviews should occur, orientation should begin, supervisors should prepare work areas, and equipment should be assigned. Everything becomes more organized when those milestones are visible.
Second, review historical workforce data every year. Don't rely on memory. Review actual numbers, hiring timelines, turnover, attendance, productivity, overtime, training. The data usually tells a much clearer story.
Third, maintain relationships with qualified candidates throughout the year. Someone unavailable today might become your strongest employee next season. Stay connected. Follow up. Keep communication open.
Fourth, strengthen relationships with staffing partners before demand increases. Discuss future hiring. Review expected skills. Share production schedules. Coordinate recruiting strategies. Preparation benefits everyone.
Fifth, invest in onboarding. Employees remember their first few days. Organized orientation. Clear expectations, consistent communication, safety training, mentorship. Those investments continue paying dividends throughout the assignment.
Sixth, develop your supervisors. Leadership capacity should grow alongside workforce capacity. As teams become larger, supervisors need additional tools and support.
Seventh, don't overlook returning employees. Many seasonal workers are interested in coming back. Maintain accurate records, reconnect early, recognize previous performance. Returning employees often become productive much faster than brand new hires.
And finally, review every season after it ends. Ask what worked. Ask what didn't. Capture lessons while they're still fresh, then apply those improvements during the next planning cycle.
Let's bring this back to the industries we've discussed today. Warehousing succeeds when inventory forecasts, shipping schedules, recruiting, and onboarding all move together.
Retail distribution performs best when customer demand forecasts drive hiring timelines instead of emergency staffing requests.
Food production benefits from planning around harvest schedules, production increases, equipment readiness, and employee training well before products begin moving through the facility.
Manufacturing achieves stronger results when production schedules, maintenance planning, engineering projects, recruiting, and workforce development support one another from the beginning.
Despite their differences, those industries share one common principle. Successful workforce planning begins before additional employees are needed. That's where organizations gain flexibility, managers reduce operational pressure, recruiters build stronger pipelines, employees receive better onboarding, and that's where customers experience consistent service.
One thing we've learned over many years in staffing is that seasonal demand isn't the challenge. Every business experiences changing workloads. The real question is how early an organization begins preparing for them.
When preparation starts months ahead, recruiting becomes more thoughtful. Candidates have a better experience. Supervisors have time to coach. Teams develop confidence before production reaches full speed.
Those improvements create momentum. Employees feel supported. Managers stay focused on leadership. Operations remain productive. Customers receive dependable service. The organization enters each season with a clear plan instead of reacting to daily staffing shortages.
That's a great place to wrap up today's discussion. Workforce planning isn't about predicting every detail perfectly. Business conditions change, markets evolve, customer demand shifts. The organizations that consistently perform well aren't the ones eliminating uncertainty. They're the ones preparing for it. When forecasting becomes part of your operational strategy, hiring becomes more organized, onboarding becomes more effective, supervisors gain time to lead, and seasonal demand becomes something your business is ready to manage rather than something it struggles to overcome. Thank you for spending time with us for another episode of Workers.com Staffing Pulse, Insights from the Frontline.
If today's discussion gave you new ideas for preparing your workforce before your next busy season, we hope you'll continue the conversation with your leadership team. A little planning today often prevents significant staffing challenges later.
If you're an employer looking for experienced staffing support in warehousing, retail distribution, food production, manufacturing, skilled trades, logistics, engineering, maritime, or office and administrative roles, visit Workers.com to learn how we help businesses build flexible workforce solutions nationwide.
If you're searching for your next opportunity, whether you're interested in temporary assignments, temp-to-hire positions, or direct hire careers, visit jobs.workers.com. New opportunities are added regularly across a wide range of industries.
You can also find more workforce insights, hiring resources, articles, and every episode of this podcast by visiting workers.com/community.
Thank you for listening to Workers.com Staffing Pulse, Insights from the Frontline. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd truly appreciate your support. Please follow the podcast on your favorite platform, subscribe, leave us a review, give the episode a rating, like the video, and share it with colleagues, friends, and anyone who could benefit from today's discussion. Those simple actions help more employers and job seekers discover the podcast and allow us to continue bringing you practical workforce insights each week. Until next time, keep planning ahead, keep investing in your workforce, and keep building teams that are ready for tomorrow's opportunities as well as today's demands.